footprint, it doesn't disappear with the wind or anything else. That's what you're going to learn about today. How many of you love technology? Love it? How many really love technology and you might be kind of maybe geeky and willing to admit it? Okay, I know it's not maybe a cool thing to do. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing Mark St. Peter. He's going to talk to you today about computer forensics. You heard Attorney McQuaid talk about computer forensics and discovery using your computer and the fact that what you put on the internet lasts forever. Most people don't believe that, but it's true, and Mark's going to demonstrate that for you this morning. Mark is the CEO and Managing Director of Computing Source, which is an all-in-one digital evidence and legal support firm with offices in Southfield, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Birmingham, Grand Rapids, Chicago, Indianapolis, Tahiti. No, just kidding about Tahiti. Hopefully, though, I'd like to go work there. In this role, Mark develops and executes the company's strategic vision, oversees long-term growth of the company, and manages the day-to-day operations. Okay, that's the official introduction of Mark. Now let me tell you some cool stuff about Mark. He grew up on the east side, went to school at De La Salle. You guys heard of De La Salle? Okay, pretty strict place. His dad was a juvenile officer on the east side, so his dad was a police officer. Think about growing up with a police officer for your dad. One of the cool things about Mark is that he was shot when he was a young man, and he still wears the bullet that he was shot with, and he almost died, and it changed his life, and he's going to tell you a little bit about that when he tells you all about how your digital footprint never disappears. Please join me in welcoming Mark St. Peter.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Okay, I guess since you led with that, we'll start with that. My name, as she said, is Mark St. Peter, and I guess I'm going to begin by telling you a little bit about myself before we get into the details of what I do for a living. A little bit about me. I got an early start in business. This is my first board meeting. I actually went to the University of Michigan to be a doctor. I was in pre-med. Around that time period, though, I was also writing software, and it's true, I did get shot one night. I was leaving a client, stopped at an intersection, door popped open, got rid of it with bullets. Then she told you everything. I guess I'll show you. This is the bullet that, this is one of 9 bullets that went through me right here. But that's a separate story. I am, as it says, the progeny of law enforcement. My father was a youth bureau officer with the city of Detroit. So imagine your father coming home every day after having got criminals all day. How tough was my upbringing? Pretty tough. I dropped out of college to play with computers. I've been playing with computers for 30 years, and I have to say I would do it all over again. I get to do what I love. I'm very passionate about computers. And borrowing a page from Attorney McQuaid's book, I want to tell you a little bit about, I'll tell you in the next slide, but I want to tell you there's a lot of careers in the field that I've chosen, which is computer support of law. When I say I fell into forensics, what I mean by that is I was a computer programmer, I've been an analyst, I was a network, I oversaw an international network for the Michigan Consolidated Gas Company and their parent company, mostly across the United States, but with some international. So I've had a lot of different experiences. I was fortunate enough to be your age when computers were really became prominent, when the IBM PC was invented. We used to store data on magnetic cassette tapes. Do you all know what a cassette tape is? This was before the CD. Personally, my credentials are, although I did not finish college, I recommend that you do. I am a CCE, which is a Certified Computer Examiner. This is a credential from the International Society of Computer Forensic Examiners. It's kind of like a unicorn. There's only 600 in the United States. It's a fairly high-level credential in the computer field. And so I got that one, I didn't get any others. And my second credential is a CFE, I'm a certified fraud examiner. So I specialize in computer fraud. I'm the least favorite guy to see walk into a bank. What is computer forensics? Forensics in general, as you'll see throughout the day today, is really, it's a legal support. There's medical forensics, there's computer forensics. Computer forensics, we gather evidence digitally. We freeze it, we collect it, we authenticate it. This is very important because in the legal system, and you'll hear more about this throughout the day through your other sessions, but there's a whole lot that goes in the legal procedure, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But when it comes time to have that magic moment in court, the prosecutor or the defense has to be able to do something called laying foundation. They have to prove that this computer file is actually the computer file that came off the computer that was found 3 years ago at the scene of the crime. Okay? So forensics in general is the handling of evidence gathered from gathering to presentation. My company has a lot of different careers. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. Some of them might be of use to you. We employ certainly computer forensic technicians. We have video experts. My friend Travis here capturing video, often captures video for depositions, court hearings. We have court reporters. We have people who do demonstratives, big trial boards or models or representations for court. We have document specialists that scan documents and make sure that they're presentable and broken up correctly. We have electronic discovery, which is a term in our industry for the gathering of everything electronic, computer files, photographs, music, email, texts. So there certainly are a lot of careers, and generally our company is what's called a litigation support company. Computers are computers. This is something I'm often heard saying. When you get to, I don't know if that many of you remember these ads, but whether it's a Mac or a PC or a Unix-based computer or your cell phone, at the fundamental level, though, all computers do is take information in, do something with it, and put it out. That's all they do. That's all they. Well, I don't know that's all they'll ever do, but that's all they do right now. They do it the same way they did when I was your age, and I'm considerably older now. They deal with data at a basic level, ones and zeros, bytes, megabytes, you've heard these terms. And they all pretty much fundamentally operate the same. So I kind of joke, people say, what's a Mac? It's a PC. At the bottom, when you peel it all away, it's really just a computer. It's all just digital information. And you'll see why that's important later. Computer forensics in the law. This field is really, really exploding right now. We find ourselves involved in all kinds of cases, both supporting the legal system, prosecution side. We work for defense. You're all, I hope, familiar with the difference between civil and criminal, everybody? Okay, I didn't see a lot of hands. So civil crimes are those they're not crimes. Civil cases are business disputes, divorces, the things that don't involve a crime, and then of course criminal cases involve a crime. But they all go through the same court system, they all have the same rules of evidence pretty much. And computer forensics in the law, again, as I said, it's very important to collect information correctly and to preserve it and keep track of it. There's a thing called a chain of custody that you have to abide by. You have to be able to account for the presence of that data all throughout its lifetime until it's brought into court so that you can prove that it isn't another copy. Here are some typical uses of computer forensics. We participate in a lot of cases where there's been allegations of thefts of IP, intellectual property. Somebody has left an employer and stolen the recipe to Kentucky KFC chicken or Coca-Cola, or just basically the customer list, the pricing information. And if we get to a computer promptly, we can tell things such as what files were accessed last, what was printed last, what websites were visited. And just to point to that, it's important that we act promptly. Once other people start using the computer, it muddies the water. It doesn't make it impossible, it just makes my job much more difficult. Divorce. Divorce cases almost always involve one spouse or the other wanting to look at the other spouse's computer. EEOC and HR issues in employment, there's a lot of computer data. There's allegations of harassment in the workplace, and if you know, the people sending inappropriate jokes. Well, again, it's all digitized on the computer. Business disputes, there are many. There are business partners, business deals gone awry, crime and fraud, which some of what Attorney McQuaid talked about, and inappropriate computer content. We'll come to that later. So, in my industry, when I'm presenting to my peers, this slide that's up right now is almost mandatory. It is the life cycle of litigation for electronics. It's called the Electronic Discovery Reference Model. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because it isn't relevant to what we're talking about today, but I want you to have it as a backdrop for some of the things I'm talking about. The life cycle of litigation is actually much broader. It begins with a dispute or a suspicion of a dispute. Investigators get involved to prove that the dispute is real. You know, did the crime occur? Did the infidelity occur? And then this gives rise to a lawsuit. And if it involves digital content, you'll find me and my company right in the middle of this slide. Starting at this end with the identification of what computer data, collect it all or collect some of it. What's pertinent to the situation at hand. We have to preserve it and then collect it. There's, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this either, but there's a very specific way to collect computer data. We don't collect it like you see it as files and folders. We collect it literally sector by sector, bit by bit, in what's called a bit stream. In the middle, we spend a lot of time processing it, getting it in format. Attorneys spend a lot of time reviewing it, separating relevant from not relevant, and analyzing it so that it can ultimately be presented at trial. So that's kind of just a backdrop. This is a hard drive. It's been compromised. And yet, would you believe that I can collect the data off of this hard drive? Now, I won't be able to get all of it, but I'll be able to get enough of it. And in many cases, like, for instance, computer data, I just want to explain this to you. Computer data, many people don't understand this. Computer data isn't stored like you see it. You're all of an age, you're used to seeing it in files and folders and icons. On this drive, that data is stored in what's called sectors. Literally as ones and zeros. And if I could take that piece of metal right there and pull those off, I can reconstruct that data. And data is stored much like bricks in a wall. So when a file is deleted, a text, a file, a video, it's deleted, it's not really deleted. That brick just becomes available. And if the computer overwrites it, it overwrites it. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But as long as that brick is still there, the computers tend to seek out the fresh bricks. And all of your cell phones in your pocket probably have 32, 64, 128 gig. There's a lot of fresh space. So I would venture to say I could take any one of your cell phones. If you want to give it to me, I could show you all your deleted texts, if you'd like to. I do it every day. People are surprised to know that once you delete, once you type, and what you send, you delete it, it's not gone. I do it. I bring it back every day for criminal prosecution, for business disputes, for all the things I talked about. Here's a couple situations. You have an employee who decides to leave his job. He sits down the day, the week leading up to his resignation, copies data to a thumb drive. I wore these special just for you today. These cufflinks are 4 gig. Well, one is a 4 gig thumb drive, and one is a Wi-Fi access. So I can walk into your place of business, plug this one in, pipe your data out of your organization without a lot of trouble. Copying data, most of you are familiar with the cloud, like the iCloud. You can take employees often will take business content, pipe it up to the cloud, so that when they get home they can bring it back down. Emailing things to their home, etc. Almost every case I work in, there's an attempt to erase or obfuscate or cover the tracks. And there are things like eraser. Like, I will admit, if I wanted to make computer data be gone, I'm sufficiently equipped to do that. But most people aren't. I don't think there's anybody in this room, I don't recognize anybody in this room, that would have the right tools to really eradicate data. And I mean it. All the computers, files on your laptop that you think you deleted, 90+% of them I'm positive I would take money that I could bring them back to life. Another situation, you have a husband and wife, they've had a marital breakdown, which is always a sad thing, but one spouse is trying to prove that the other was unfaithful, and the other spouse wants to find out where the money went. These are always the two issues in divorces, and usually the computer is right at the center of it. And again, almost all the time, by the time we get the computer, somebody's installed eraser or evidence eliminator or disk scrubber software to eliminate that. More and more situations. We've had several criminal cases. The criminal is a funny role for me. Not funny, haha, but a lot of times I'm appointed by judges. I don't work for either lawyer. I'm appointed by the judge to verify evidence. Sometimes I work for the defense. I don't directly work for the prosecution. Like in Attorney McQuaid's office, those are all employees of that division. But I am sometimes called in as a consultant to verify or help them sort out their findings. One of the most common uses in a criminal case is an alibi. I wasn't there. Well, in your cell phones, there's a GPS chip. And most of you know this from installing apps. You can turn it on, turn it off, or so you think. There's a 911 feature associated with your phone where that GPS data is captured. Every time you make a call, take a picture, your location is stored. So again, if I could take your phone, I could tell you where you were last week, last month. I have a list of you from your parents about last Saturday that they want me to get you. I'm kidding. So we had two cases very recently. One, the man's alibi proved that there was a theft, and his phone proved that he was active and located so far away he could have not been close to it. Another defendant claiming innocence, the forensics showed on his phone that he was literally at the liquor store, and that's unfortunate for him. So there's a word up here, metadata. Show of hands, who here knows what metadata is? We have one. Okay, not many. Let me take a minute on this, because this is it's important you understand this to understand computer forensics. Data is obviously the picture you took, the text you sent, the voicemail, the email, the document, your resume, your school paper. That's the computer file. But metadata kind of goes with it. The name of the file, the size of the file. When you take a picture and store it in the file, it's the type of camera you use, what the shutter speed was, whether the flashes are on. All those things are about the data. The slogan of mine is it's data about data. The songs that you play, the artist, what year it was released, what album it belonged to, the album art, that's all data that kind of travels with the data. So metadata is data about data. It's very important in my line of work because we use it to prove things like when documents were created, when they were altered, and such. And so what we do back at my office is we take all the evidence, we load the computer, we push the find evidence button and turn it over to the lawyers, and that's pretty much it. That's not really it. We don't have a find evidence button. This is a laborious and detail-oriented procedure. We do things like, and these are I'm just going to kind of skim through these. I think I took 10:30, right? Okay. Let me skim through these a little bit quickly so we can stay on time here and allow some questions and answers, which I hope there are some. There are certain things we always do in a computer investigation. We'll go through and we'll collect a list of all the files on the computer, whether they're deleted or whether they're alive. Their name, their path, their size, and we can tell a great deal, right? That's first base. We can tell what files were recently accessed. So the file report looks somewhat like this. Like these are all a list of deleted files off of a computer. The date they were created and last accessed, that's metadata. Those are important clues. Knowing that the day before someone left, they were accessing the price list, that's an important clue. A USB report, just like these thumb drives or the traditional ones you're used to, every time you insert them into a computer, the computer keeps a log of what USB drive was used, what serial number, what capacity, when it was first used, when it was last used. And many people don't know that. A lot of times, the case is solved by following the thumb drive. We know that you used the thumb drive at school, and we know that you used it at home, and I can tie those together and prove that you well, let's say it was employment. You took some information and now it's on your home computer and now we have a problem. This is a link file, LNK link file. This is a tool we use to show what applications were, what files were accessed. It's a supplemental way in addition to finding the file itself. Sometimes we can find a link file to a file that's no longer there, that's been scrubbed away or attempted to be scrubbed away. So we can't find the file by its name anymore, so we have to go through the hard drive, like I said, at that bit level to find the, to find the actual content that's missing. A prefetch report helps us understand what programs were used. When you launch a program, anything from Angry Birds to Microsoft Word, it creates what's called a prefetch. It pulls together all the files that are necessary for that application to run properly, so that they're all right and ready. This helps us understand, like you'll see up here, erase or cycle from the bottom was launched at this date and time. Being able to prove that is important, could be important to the case. Do all of you know what a registry is? Show of hands. All being very shy or don't know, so I'm going to go with don't know. A registry, most computers have them. Mac computers use something a little bit different, but it's a central repository inside the computer that keeps track of the last 10 files you used, your passwords, certain settings that you have, what screen backdrop you have. That's all stored in what's called the registry. So these are just a few of the tools that we use. My favorite, by far, is the Internet History Report. And again, what we've learned today is you can't delete it, and it's there forever. I can tell more about everyone in this room by going through your Internet History Report than you would imagine. I can tell what kind of things you like, don't like. I can tell who you like, who you don't. I can tell where you shop, what you buy. It keeps track of every time you type a search. Every time you search for purple unicorns, well, it's stored. Okay, somebody's searching for purple unicorns. Don't know why, but they are. And it's all, well, this is in a rendered fashion. This is not how we find it. We harvest it and put it in this format so we can analyze it. But this is an important tool. This actually, I'll show you something in a minute. This is, in most of the cases I work in, in my career, I've kind of, they kind of keep me in the corner and only let me out for certain types of cases anymore, but they usually are complicated cases, and this is almost at the center of all of them. This has not a lot to do with law per se, but I want, since this is a computer forensic session, I want to make sure I just briefly touch on this. This is why information can be deleted when you think it can't. Computers, by their very nature, store data in a very organized, sector-based, picture bricks in a wall, very logical, unitized fashion. So let's say you have a book report that took up 3 bricks, it's this long, and you delete it. And then you type your resume, and it's only a brick and a half long. Well, when that lays down, some of that data will lay on top of your resume that you had deleted, but the brick and a half you didn't delete is still there. And so this little space here at the end is called slack space. We had a case that resolved itself one time just by showing there was a man who was claiming he had never had access to a particular bank account, and in the slivers of his computer, by the way, it's as big as the ocean picture, I mean, nearing down to a minnow, we were able to find a piece of data that showed that account number on his computer. Confronted with the evidence, if you never access the account, how can the account number, which is very precise, is on your computer, buried in this nook and cranny? So that's again, when you, I can get parts of texts, I can get whole texts. I'm saying text just because that's probably the most common medium used by everyone in this room. The Internet Usage Report is so bad, I've always liked this. The attorney's about to introduce it, and the man says, "I just rather confess." So it's a pretty telling report. I want to spend a minute on. Okay. This topic is very awkward. I have 5 sisters. I have 5 younger sisters. I think we all know I'm talking about child pornographic. Okay. and it's very awkward. I don't like these cases. I have reached a point in my career where I'm often appointed by the judge to investigate these cases. And I will tell you, I have made a lot of friends with, I have friends at the FBI. The first time I appeared on the scene, they don't like to see me because I'm working for the defense. But we found a case one time in checking the facts for the FBI that the judge ordered me to check. It was my opinion that this content was not put there by the alleged person. It was the husband. The metadata showed me that it was put on there at a time he was at work. He was working at an automotive company. He's on video at that time. We subpoenaed the wife's phone and found that she had put the child pornographic images on a computer in an effort to win a child custody case. So that was kind of a legendary one in the last year, a frightening concept. But the message I want to give you today is that the authorities more and more, Attorney McQuaid talked about this, the good decisions you make now will affect your future. You'll thank yourself for them. Unfortunately, the bad decisions you make today could also drastically impact your future. Let me talk about this for a second. You're all very young. I was young once. You're all very frisky. I was frisky once. A lot of pictures are being sent back and forth. And I know a lot of you are 18 now, but you are just recently 18, and you know a lot of people that are under 18. The authorities are starting to take the position that these pictures without clothes are child pornographic, and therefore that's a felony. There are three factors they have to prove. You have possession of it. So if you have possession of a friend under clothes, and that friend is under 18, that's one. Two, you have to know that you have it. Well, this is easy to prove. If you have it, it's in your normal collection, you know you have it. And you have to have control over it. So if it's right there in your pictures, if they can prove those three things, you'll be convicted of a felony, and you'll be put on a sex offenders list. Let me tell you, you will not get a job at Attorney McQuaid's office. You won't get a job at my company. You won't be able to go to law school. You won't be able to get certain loans. You will never run for office, and you likely will never serve on a jury. So, I mean, that's how grave this is. Now, you're all very young, so there is a chance that 20 years in the future you could get this eradicated from your record. But think about that. It's awkward. I resist the temptation, I guess, because it doesn't go away. It's there forever, and it's illegal. And that includes Snapchat and BeeJive. And I know about a dozen others. They're not what they purport to be. I can bring a Snapchat back like that. I have all the right tools and I have all the right knowledge to do it. So just be very careful with this. I wanted to make sure and send that message today. I'm going to rattle through. These are terms. These are nerd. Okay, I'm going to be a nerd for you now. These are some terms used in our industry. A hash value. Every quantity of computer data, a file, a folder, a whole hard drive has a hash value. It's like a bin. If I encounter a piece of computer data over here and it has a hash value, and I can prove that I can find that same quantity over here, it could be a different name, could be a different place, but if they have the same hash value, I can prove at a scientific level that they are the same content. Slack space we talked about earlier, denisting. The NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, has a list of all the files that are like part of Microsoft Word, part of Windows, and so we can denist, we can get rid of all those because clearly those aren't computer data that you created. An RFC, this is an amazing fact to tell you, of all people to tell you. An RFC is a request for content. It is the rules of the internet, if you will. RFC 0822 is the one that governs the format of an email. It was defined in 1986, before any of you were alive, except a few of you. And that is still the same format complied to today. I find that amazing. Email was defined 30 years ago, and now we're sending pictures and graphics and songs, and it still comports to the same format that we defined 30 years ago. IP addresses, you're probably mostly familiar with this. This is the address of where you're at. This building has an IP address for its internet system. A MAC address is the specific, if that your tablet, your laptop, your cell phone has it's a hardwired, signed by the manufacturer address. So while everybody in this room might be texting right now, I could trace an email to this building and I can trace it to you by virtue of your MAC address, because there's obviously many people in this room. Spoliation is a term of the legal community. It's when you are in the middle of a legal proceeding and you try to erase the evidence. Again, we've proven that it isn't erasable, but when you try to do it, you're committing something called spoliation. I had this earlier, I just wanted to finish with it so that you had that backdrop. In this career, in this field, it's very important that you understand those, this process. Over here, this production and discovery, am I correct that most of you are in law, some law-based courses at your schools? Do you all understand what discovery is? Okay, so the discovery phase is usually the longest part of a lawsuit when information is traded back and forth and depositions are taken. So that's what I do, a little bit about it. I want to end with this. What you did, the tweets you send, a lot of people don't take computer security seriously enough. And I maybe call it self-serving, but I wanted to play this.
New photos of Hollywood's biggest celebrities posted all over the internet. Tonight, Apple admits a hacker was able to crack the code of the star's iCloud accounts. But the company says that the service itself is still safe. But all this controversy has many people wondering exactly how the cloud works.
Yeah, no, your selfies aren't floating in the sky. The cloud is an easy way of explaining that your data is on someone else's massive computer, possibly as far away as Asia. And as Jason Carr explains, there are things you can do to protect your privacy.
Obviously, if you don't trust the cloud to be secure, don't use the cloud. Turn it off.
Make sure you go through your settings and make sure they're appropriate for your usage. If you don't want your photos on your phone synchronizing, there's a setting for that.
But if you depend on the cloud to store your life and your racy photos, don't be most people.
Most people use the same password for their bank account, their Gmail, their Twitter account. If you guess one, you've got them all.
Mark St. Peter is a security expert at Computing Source, his Southfield-based company. His #1 tip is so simple, you should do it right now.
The more complicated you make the password in length and characters, exponentially it becomes more difficult to compute or calculate.
I sat at my desk and joined foxsports.com by concocting a long password of letters and numbers I can remember, and the more I added, the more secure it became, from weak to great. And I didn't write it down.
They teach us in computer forensics that's the first thing to look for is a sticky note.
Wow. So don't put a sticky note of your password on your...
And you'd be surprised how many people do. Or under the keyboard.
Mark also recommends treating special character keys as stand-ins for letters. In just a few minutes, I was able to come up with a few examples of passwords uniquely human in construction.
Putting brackets around words, you could say access with brackets 1, 2, 3, and that'd be a very complex password to a computer.
So, get rid of those pet name passwords, use different passwords for different accounts, and change all of them often. Jason Carr, Fox 2 News.
Just a point on that, it's true to a computer doesn't, when you use your my cat's name was Zippy. I used to use it all the time as my password. Well, how silly. I mean, that's a short word, very easy to guess. But if I say Zippy was my favorite kitten, it's a sentence. I mean, it's sense to me. But to a computer, it's just a bunch of characters this long. I can remember it like that. So you can think in sentences. The brackets are helpful. Mixing. It doesn't have to be some hieroglyphic mix of upside down P's and Q's and cross lines to be effective. And the same thing is true. You should give thought to different passwords for different things, slightly different. I'm going to pause for some questions and answers. Do we have any? Yes, ma'am.
So if I like deactivate an account or delete an account, like let's say I just deactivated like my Twitter account, could you still go back and look at everything from Twitter?
Yes. Twitter has a retention period. And if there were a lawsuit, I can subpoena those records back from Twitter. Now, there's a limit to that. Some are 90 days, some are 6 months, some are shorter. But if I find out about it soon enough, I can subpoena it. Even if you deactivate it, residual things of what you've tweeted are still on your computer because you had to type them to get them onto Twitter's network in the first place. This couldn't have been more evident than, as Attorney McQuaid was talking about the Tommy Kilpatrick case, the texts were able to be summoned back. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
So on like Law and Order, I saw an episode where they took the computer out of the room, and on the door there was a magnet that would wipe the whole computer drive. Would you be able to pull those files back?
Yes and no. Computers, most computer media is magnetic. They're starting to get into solid state and biological storage, right? But magnetic media like hard drive can be damaged, but it isn't walking through a door eradicates it, sending it through the X-ray machine doesn't deactivate it. It can disrupt it. So in other words, instead of finding the data nice and orderly in a row, I would find it just scattered all about. But that doesn't mean I can't lace it back. It's arduous, it's time consuming, it's expensive, but I can bring it back to the way it used to be. I can name 3 brides who are very grateful for this fact. They had a iPad with their wedding video, got it close to a magnet, and we were bringing their wedding videos back. So it's not always about the crimes. And anybody else? Yes, sir.
So is one of the main purposes of VPN just to blur your IP address from trackers?
I'm sorry?
Is VPN basically, because like your internet history is still stored on your computer, is VPN just usually used to blur your IP address from trackers?
Well, a VPN, a virtual private network, is actually to create a tunnel, a secure tunnel within like this is the public internet, so it's create a secure tunnel from, for instance, if I have VPN to my office, I have a secure point of contact from my office to me that's not leaking on the public internet. You may be referring to spoofing, which is, I could send you an email, well, not right now, but I could send you an email from Tahiti from this room. And that's called spoofing. I can spoof an IP address to make it look like it came from somewhere else. But that, under circumstances, that in itself is wrong. So a VPN is not meant to mask it, it's meant to protect it. It's a virtual private network. Anybody else? Oh, we have one over here.
If like when you pull up your computer and it's all like the ones and zeros and stuff, if you like erase a part of that, would you be able to like get it back and know how to put it back together?
Again, yes, you can't erase it, that's the problem. That data is always there. When you delete, when you erase it, what you're actually affecting, there's the content and there's the index. Over here, I'm gonna just prove how old I am. At the library, do they still have the card catalogs?
Yeah.
Okay. The book is still on the shelf. Just because I tear up the card catalog doesn't mean the book isn't still on the shelf. So when you delete it, you're actually taking it out of the index, but the content's still there. The way to erase computer data, just at a high level, is the Department of Defense is to override it many, many times with a pattern of other characters. That's the one thing that computers are vulnerable is overriding. Now, beware of that, because if you've been subpoenaed and you try to do that, that's actually worse than just forking over the information. Oh, we have one from Terry.
I live in Ann Arbor, and a bunch of kids were just busted for downloading music and videos and movies through torrent or other things like that. So they were downloading them for free. And they tried to download them at the computing center as opposed to on their own computer. But I don't know how they were caught. It must have been when they transferred it from the computing center to their own computer. Even though they used something in between, they were still caught with, and now they're being charged with copyright infringement.
Well, there's 3 ways. That this happens all the time, by the way. People go to public libraries and do these things and then end up convicted. You take your computer to a library. Now your IP address is that of the library, but your MAC address of your computer hasn't changed. So I can still tie it to that MAC address. Likewise, you download it to a public computer, you take a thumb drive and copy it. Well, I just showed you earlier, I can show you a thumb drive. So if I can prove that thumb drive was used at the computing center and used at your home, now I'm on my way to finding the inappropriate downloaded content. I think we can take 1 or 2 more, and yes, sir. Ma'am, sorry.
If you have a really good password, why do you need to change it later? If you have a really strong password.
Fair question, if you have a really good one, because different passwords can be cached in different things. Now, if you have a really good password and you use different ones for different purposes, that protects you more, and you can probably go along. I have a password that's not all that complicated, but it's long enough, and I've used it forever. I probably shouldn't tell you that, but I do use different passwords for different systems, because if I get hold of that one, I just open the keys to everything else. The reason for changing them is that I may get my hands on a computer where it remembered it. You see the pop-ups, do you want to remember it? Well, sometimes people goof up and don't notice it and they accidentally hit yes. Sometimes cookies are left that have your passwords in them. So, and that's all these data breaches you see, that's how they're happening as people get hold. That's how the iCloud breach happened with all the celebrities, was and also I can do a brute force attack. It takes a while, but I can run every word in the human language against your computer and guess your password or parts of it. So I'll take one more here.
I just kind of want to piggyback on that password question. At one point you said make a lot of different ones and change them often, but yet you just kind of indicated that you don't really do that.
Well,
my question is actually, you hear that all the time. We should all change our password. We should all have a different one. So I have like 9,000 passwords now. I don't even, like half the time I'm guessing my own password. So somebody told me, well, there's some services out there that will LastPass or some of the services. Any opinion on using any of those? I mean, it seems like if you put your password out there.
Well, I'd be very careful with
Yeah.
this, because some of them are marketed as that, but they're really password catchers for identity based.
Yeah, nice.
When I said what I said, is I have a password I use on my day-to-day business stuff that doesn't really, were somebody to get hold of it, it's not really gonna matter. That's the one I would change, but things for my bank account, for our company's secure network, for our data center, I do change them. And here's a tip. My bank password, it's something about the bank, followed by a letter, followed by a sentence. So it's a long, it takes me a second to type it, but I remember it easily, and it helps me remember which one goes with which, because I can appreciate that I have a lot of passwords. I have one last thing to talk to you about. And this is, I know all of you are too smart to drink and drive. You're all very young. I was young once. But an alarming habit is coming about with young people, and this is texting and driving. And I just want to talk to you about it for a second. Did you know that 11 young boys and girls die every day in the United States from texting? 11. 11 every day. You may think you're safe, you're in your car, big piece of metal. You may think you're alert and bright. Well, on my way, son, you look up, you're staring at the back of the truck. Please think about it. If you need to text, please pull over, put the car in park, tend to your business, put the phone down, get back on the road. I want to show you this, and oops. Hang on a second, let's see if I can take a minute to load it then. Actually, you know what, let me just run it.
Hi, James. My mate Jules fancies you. Cass. It's not even funny now. Let me just get his number.
I'm sorry for that, but if that affected one of you, then I did a good thing today. Please think about that. Talk to your physics teacher about what happens when two cars traveling at 50 miles an hour hit each other. So please try and avoid that, okay? Thank you for coming today.